A good vision dies in a bad culture. I can take great seeds, plant them in the ground, hard red Georgia clay with then the soil's not cultivated. The culture of the soil is not right. It's not going to grow.
Yep.
But an average vision will thrive in a great culture. Welcome to the Good Life Podcast, where we talk about the search for significance, the pursuit of purpose, and the challenges of our culture. I'm back with Daniel Foster, and I'm your host, Carl Nichols, and we are in the middle of a conversation about advice for parents. And so we're in part 2 of that. Today, we've been in a series at our church called How to Family in a Jacked Up World. And we ended our last episode, and you told us you had our 4 rules of our family posted on your fridge.
Yes.
So I just wanted to see, by way of intro, can you remember those 4 rules?
Oh my gosh. Let's see.
We did not talk about this.
Have self-control. Honest always. I should know this. Respect, self-control, respect, honest always, and do what we say the first time.
He said, do what we say the first
Obey the first time.
We call it obey the first time. He said,
Same thing.
I mean, we kind of want to put it in the character nature of God.
Sure.
So it's obedience, obey, not do what we say the first time. No, so you're gonna make it as a dad. 3 out of 4 ain't bad. And so we talked about the importance of
Do what I
parenting
said.
the heart.
Because I said so.
Because I said so. Parenting the heart is not do what I said the first time. We're going to get there with you.
I'm taking notes and learning.
Yeah, there you go. So we ended last episode talking about the 4 rules of our family: parenting the heart, shepherding the heart, creating a culture where your children and your family could have significance, not just success. And so we pick up today on something I mentioned at the end of our last episode, talking about establishing family values. And I want to talk a little bit about values for a minute, and then we'll talk about how it's affected our organization a little bit, and then we'll jump to the family, okay, if we can do that. So one of my biggest, I think, gift sets as a pastor, as a leader, one of my biggest passions is creating culture. And I just know in any part of the world, culture, you go to, going to Europe later this year, going to Seattle in a few weeks, wherever you go, the culture's a little different. And or a lot different, and it's all built around the way people behave in that culture, in that city or in that area, and those behaviors create the culture. It's agreed upon set of behaviors. This is why the culture of certain cities in America are high crime rate, because they tolerate certain behaviors. And so you can go to various parts of the world and experience all kinds of cultures and how they interact and behave with one another. And so at Relevant Church, I've always said we want to create a culture for our vision to really thrive. We're cultivating the soil. Think of a farmer cultivating soil, putting seed in the soil. If you don't cultivate the soil, you don't get the soil ready to plant, nothing can grow. Yeah. And so we talk about a vision growing in a culture. And here's what I've always said to our staff and our leadership team: a good vision dies in a bad culture. I can take great seeds, plant them in the ground, hard red Georgia clay with then the soil's not cultivated. The culture of the soil is not right. It's not going to grow. Yep. But an average vision will thrive in a great culture.
That's one of the first things you don't even remember this, but that's one of the first things you ever said to me when I was hired. We had lunch, and I'll never forget that.
Well, and so think about it. I can go to Lowe's or Home Depot or Walmart and pick out some seeds. I don't have to have the best quality seeds. If I cultivate the soil, throw those seeds in the soil, they got a great chance to thrive. But I can go get the best quality seeds, the highest dollar seeds,
that's good,
and throw them on red clay, and they're not going to grow. Same thing is true in a church world. We can talk about changing people's lives, making a difference, but if our culture's bad, our vision's not going to stick. And so at Relevant Church, we've seen the health of our church through the season of COVID and the 2.5 years of a pandemic. What kept us strong when many other churches and areas and businesses struggled, not that church is a business, but I'm just saying organizations struggled, was our culture. Our culture sustained us. Because let's be honest, there wasn't a lot of vision for a long time. So there was like no vision. And the scripture says where there's no vision, people perish. So we were constantly trying to figure out what the vision looked like, but we had a culture that could sustain us. And so here's how you create culture, though. And this is what I want people to hear. Values drive behaviors, and behaviors create culture. So what we say is we want to agree upon a set of values that drive our behaviors, that in turn, we start behaving according to our values. We create a culture in our home, in our organization, in our family, or whatever it may be. And so what I also believe is not only did organizations over the last 3 years that had a good culture survive and thrive, but families who had the right culture saw their teenagers and their kids not led astray at as high of rates. Depression, anxiety, all the various things that came as a result of a pandemic in that season of our lives. The families who had a strong, healthy culture are the ones who are thriving today. And even when they didn't know what school was going to look like, or even the ones that didn't know, we're not going to have a graduation. We don't know what your college. Everything changed about their vision in that season. But the culture of the home sustained a lot of homes. The ones that didn't, you see a lot of things. I'm not saying just because you experience something that the culture's bad. I'm just saying you run a much greater risk. And so I would say this. Part of creating a culture is building. Part of the reason I want to create a culture in our home is I want to build a strong family identity. I think the family's under attack. It's been under attack since creation. I want our kids to go, family's the strongest unit on the planet. And so we create a culture to build a strong family, and they have a strong identity. And one of the ways we do that is we create what we call values. And those values drive our behaviors, and our behaviors create our culture. And so at Relevant Church, on our staff, one of the things we say, I'll just grab one out of the air. We embrace brave communication. In churches and businesses and organizations and everything, we have a lot of people who talk about each other but don't talk to each other. Well, that culture is going to be the undermining thing in an organization. We talk about everybody, we won't talk to each other. So we say we embrace brave communication. If we got an issue, we deal with the issue, don't make it personal, and move on. That's harder for some than it is for others. But because we have a value that says we're going to do it, we hold each other accountable to, and then we create a culture that says, okay, it may not be easy, but it's safe to have tough conversations. And so you can go down our list of our values, and we finish the 5. Excellence is the last 5% is the premise there. Well, if we see some sloppiness around the last 5%, we're going to call each other on it. And so those are things that create a culture of winning in our team, but also of life change in our church, because our church has its own set of values as well. So limitless generosity being one of them, just some things that we do as a culture as a church, and so that creates a culture of generosity in our church. So we sat down 8-10 years ago, maybe longer now, and created a set of family values. And I just want to walk through them and kind of let people see. If you want to know what you value, look at your behaviors. So the average family in America would say, we value sports. We value, vacations. We value, dad values golf, or mom values shopping, or look at your time and your energy and your resource. Look at the behaviors you have, and you can determine what people value. And so here's a couple. I'm going to run through 10 of them. You can stop and talk about them. So we say the Nichols family values. This is something we hold each other accountable to. We talk about them. We review them. At least Julie and I review them. The kids don't. I mean, they're getting older. They just seen mom and dad live these out. We're not saying, okay, we need you to go do this. But here they are. Number 1, we spend time purposefully. We don't allow culture to dictate how much time we spend together as a family. We homeschool our kids. That comes as a result of thinking counterculturally and spending time purposefully. And so when I say spend time purposefully, a lot of people say, oh, we go on walks together. Yeah. Oh, we go out to dinner together. Yeah. Also, though, listen, there are times where we're just laying on the couch doing nothing. But the time we are together, what is the purpose behind the time? Yeah. Being in the same room does not equal being present. I can be lonely and be in a group. And so we spend time purposefully. Some of the ways, and we do that, we have kind of a set routine on Tuesday nights. We spend a lot of time together. We structure our schedules in such a way where we're together a lot. And there's a lot of things that I would change to make that happen. So we spend time purposely. Second one is we play regularly. Now I want you to see a pattern here. We've worded these in such a way that allow us to kind of, they're action oriented. So we play regularly. Julie's not the one to play. She's not one to go out and play basketball with boys. I get a lot of that, so I play basketball. We play pickleball now that I'm getting older and can't move. As silly as it says, Dad hates video games. I'm terrible at video games. I'll go play video games. My oldest loves to play cards. We play cards together. And so regardless of what it is, my boys play sports. Mom is there. Mom is involved. Mom is running. So while he's playing, we're celebrating as part of playing. So we play regularly. We speak honestly. This is a pattern in my life. But here's the thing. As we've learned, speaking honestly and directly does not mean being mean. But we don't allow people just to mitigate language. When I say mitigate language, what I mean is we could easily get into this pattern of just hinting at things and expecting things to change.
I've been saying this for 2 weeks. Like, you didn't say anything. Well, I hinted at it. It's
Yeah,
like,
you
well,
should know.
Don't assume that I'm going to get that.
I mean, and let's be honest. In church world, you can talk about, I mean, you've had conflicts in church world. Most of them came from not speaking. If we could have dealt with this directly months ago and been clear and not talked about it, just spoke honestly to one another,
right,
it'd be a game changer. And what I'm trying to do with my kids is create a safe space. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. You can say anything. You can tell me, I'm really angry at you right now, and I don't even want to be around you, Dad. I'm mad. Okay. But you don't have permission to go slam your door and throw things in your room. That's not part of it.
This is a lesson I'm still learning. I have to regularly check myself. It's not how I said it. And it's not what I said, it's how I said it. And that is just me being transparent. That is a struggle that a battle I fight all the time.
So in your marriage, think about it this way.
Yeah.
Hadley's 8 months. You and Krista have a disagreement. She doesn't know. She's just, I mean, she might pick up on tension if it's heated or whatever. Mm-hmm. The question is, when she's 5, are you willing to have that disagreement in front of her because it's healthy enough? You see?
Yeah.
Because now nobody cut anybody. Mm-hmm. They just spoke honestly and genuinely and received it, and it didn't become a personal attack.
Yeah.
So what you're teaching your kids at 5 years old is, you can say, I can look at your mom and say, hey, you kind of got a bad attitude and you're affecting the culture of everybody in the room. My kids hear me say that to her.
Yeah.
My kids have heard her say to me, hey, you need to watch your tone. You sound mad right now. Mm-hmm. I'm like, what? Oh, I'm mad. No, but you sound mad.
I think that's healthy, and that gives your kids an awareness, like, this is how Christians, followers of Christ, handle conflict or hold each other accountable.
Yeah, and I think the thing is they see Mom and I speaking honestly. We're not, listen, this is one that's hard because you don't, sometimes you wonder if this is worth talking about. Is this worth having an issue about? But then I can speak to them honestly, but it's not out of anger. It's not. So, and here's what it allows me to do. When I speak honestly often, it keeps me from building up animosity and frustration and it coming out in the wrong way. Absolutely. So we've agreed upon this value that we are going to do this to create an open and honest and vulnerable home. Yep. That's the culture that's created as of that. So when we spend time purposefully, we create a loving, joyful home. Do you see the values that create the culture? All right. We worship passionately. Now, this is interesting. I am always in the worship experience at Relevant Church. If I'm here, I'm always on the front row. As a pastor, I know a lot of pastors who sit back in their offices or in their green rooms. Not me. I'm going to worship passionately. First of all, I think something that God would want me to do. It's not a show. It's not, but I also want my kids. I do want my kids to see me worship. Mm-hmm. I don't want my kids to be like, well, we worship passionately, but Dad's in his office. Yeah. First of all, that's not how I'm wired. But secondly, even if it was how I was wired, I'd push through for the sake of this value in our home. Right. We worship passionately. If I can get amped up at a basketball game. I can scream. I can holler. If I can do that, but I can't worship my God passionately, my kids see a fake. Yeah. I want the same energy. I'm even mad if somebody screams at a basketball game. It's part of being, that's just sports. I'm not. Yeah. No, if we make it like personal, it's different. But like, I can scream at the ref for missing a call. Mm-hmm. You know, I can scream at, hey, get in your spot, whatever. But it's not personal. But I better have the same passion in my passion for God and passion for doing the right thing in my spiritual walk, and they need to see that. Mm-hmm. So we worship passionately. Here's the crazy part. A 16-year-old is not the most overly expressionate person. So I'll never forget when he was like 13 or 14 and I first saw him kind of swaying and singing. I was like, that's passionate for him, bro. That's passionate for him. Like he's into it. Now my youngest dude, he might be like, tell him what dance moves he's going to do at some point. But Jace, who at 13 or sometime in there, and when he was in the main auditorium on Sunday, I just kind of saw him and I was like, that's cool. He's just kind of getting with it. Mm-hmm. And no hands, no nothing, but he's singing and he's moving, and that's passionate for him. Yeah. That's a big deal for his temperament type. So real quick, we'll run through this. We fight fairly. Same thing about speak honestly. We don't fight with each other. We fight for one another. That's a hard one. We fight fairly. We pray frequently. Now, this is every night, without fail, I pray with my boys before they go to bed. If I'm out of town, Julie prays with our boys before they go to bed. That's my way. Now, if it were girls, Julie probably would be more involved in that prayer time as well. But for me, that's the time where I just kind of get to speak candidly to my boys about things. And sometimes it's like, rub-a-dub-dub, thanks for the grub. I mean, it is. But it's going to happen. And if it doesn't happen, Dad, we didn't pray tonight. and we pray frequently.
You set that expectation.
Yeah.
They expect that.
And there's times like we're not perfect at this. There's times where we'll do our devotional time. We'll have conversations and we'll say, okay, what is it we want to pray for you about right now? And so we pray frequently. Here's the one that's hard. We forgive freely. I say hard, I forgive people that are close to me.
Yeah.
Pretty easy. People that are at a distance, I don't. Does that make sense? Like I forgive my friends, but not my enemies.
Yeah.
And so like I can forgive Julie. Okay, fine. Let's move on. She struggles with that a little bit. That's just her wiring. And so she has a hard time forgiving freely. I saw a meme the other night, or a Facebook or Instagram video, and this was just funny to me and I sent it to Julie laughing because I understand her temperament type. It said, "Husband, I'm sorry." Right. So the husband, it's a circle, and then drew this arrow to "I'm sorry," and then it said, "Wife, circle," and then it was all these zigzags and all this stuff, and then it comes over and circles the husband and says, "I'm sorry." like I was like, yeah. So like that's our life because she's just not wired to like get it out and be done.
Yeah.
So the hard part is like forgiveness for me is natural. Yeah. Forgiveness for her is not. The smallest thing can affect her temperament type. And so we're learning.
Yeah.
And I'm learning to say, okay, what can I do? How can I respond? And so that doesn't make her a bad person because when I look at like, fight fairly, that one's not easy for me sometimes. I can be cutting. Right. So I'm not telling you on my dark side here, right? Yeah. But so then I can not fight fairly sometimes and then she don't forgive freely. That's always great, right?
Right.
So I think ultimately these are things saying, hey, you're not fighting fairly right now. Mm-hmm. Oh, crap. You're not forgiving freely right now. So those two things can
they go together.
Yeah, we can call each other on.
I'm similar in that where I can let things go really quick. 2 months ago, Chris and I were on the way home from dinner, and it was not an argument or just like a disagreement, whatever. And I was just kind of like, I'm done.
Whatever, yeah.
Yeah, and so we're in the car, and I'm like, hey, you want to stop by Crumble Cookies and get some cookies? And she's like, no, I'm fine. And then 2 or 3 hours later, she's like, can we talk? Like, can we talk about? I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, dinner. And I'm like, I didn't realize it was a big, yeah. I'm over it. I said, when I asked you if you want to get cookies, I'm over it. She's like, why didn't you say anything? I'm like, I thought you were over it. I just assumed like it was done. And then the next day I had our temperament counseling and she was kind of going over some of my things. And she's like, you can forgive quickly and move on quickly and that can be confusing to others. And I'm like, this literally happened last night. Like this is exactly.
But so I think this is important because see, here's the thing. Naturally, all 10 of these things that I'm giving you here are not my wiring. Some of them are, but fighting fairly, like I just want to punch you. I can elevate that stuff pretty quickly, and that comes from having to take it for myself as an only child in a pretty rough environment and some of those things. So like I can just be like, let's end this. Let's go for the knockout blow. That's my natural wiring, but I can't. That's not acceptable. Mm-hmm. That's sinful at its extreme.
It's frowned upon.
Yeah, so I have to actually submit myself to these values to create the right culture in my home. Yeah. Or here's a better one: when your teenager rubs you the wrong way. Because I remember being a teenage boy and going, "Wait a second, that's probably not how that should have been handled." Mm-hmm. So I have to have Julie be able to say to me, "Hey," like a few weeks ago. I was jumping on Trey for something, not really him. I was passionate about something that happened at basketball practice. And I was like, if that happens again, you do this. Because I felt like he was being taken advantage of. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to jump on the court and say anything, So I was like, you need to do this. And Julie goes, hey, it sounds like you're mad at him. I'm like, I'm not mad at him. I'm mad at the kid, the other kid, or whatever. Yeah. And so he's, but the point is like that freedom to otherwise the culture becomes like, oh gosh, Dad's mad. And no, we have to be able to call people on these values. Yeah. All right. So we'll move on. The last 3, work diligently. Oh man, this one's hard. My kids are spoiled. My oldest loves to take shortcuts. He is the master at finding the quickest, easiest way to do something. And I was the same way.
He's a very successful person.
I was the exact same way. I never studied, made B's, and I was like, I don't need an A. I made a B. I don't need an A. I'm fine. And it ain't worth the extra time to get an A. That was kind of my thing.
I studied and got B's. So.
And so like I literally just by process of elimination can make a B. He's the same way. But he makes A's. Like he's smarter than I was when it comes to like problem solving. And so that being said, he'll sometimes take shortcuts. And recently I had to have a conversation with him and say, listen, I kind of hope you fail that assignment because you took a shortcut. Mm-hmm. He didn't fail it. He made a 90. And I'm like, oh my God. It made me so mad because he took a shortcut and somewhere along the way it's going to bite him. Mm-hmm. And he really looked like a deer in headlights. And I was like, you can't do that. And he was like, what? Why? I don't understand. I was like, he naturally defaulted to the shortest route to get there, right?
Yeah.
And so we work diligently. One of the things that I tell them is like every year we have to pull weeds and put out mulch. That's this season. They hate it, you know. And so we have to teach them that as well. Give generously and think counterculturally are the last two. Give generously. We model generosity. When I stand up before our church and I tell our church that we're going to give, my kids know. They don't get certain things at Christmas because other kids get things at Christmas.
Yeah.
They know that the first X amount of our income, 30-something% of our income, goes to our local church. Not 10%, not 20%, 30-something% now goes to our local church every year. And so they know that. They know intuitively that God is first. We're generous with God first, and then we're generous with others, and then everything else. And so that has become my oldest. He likes to save. My youngest will give you anything he's got. But my oldest understands the discipline of giving.
Yeah.
He's not naturally generous, but he understands the discipline of generosity. And so that's important. And the last one was think counterculturally. This one, if you don't do anything else, make this a value in your home. Think counterculturally. This, if you'll run everything through the lens of is culture saying this, but what does God say? It'll change everything about your life. And so from homeschooling to, even when it comes to sports, because we've homeschooled, it's given us some limited opportunities in sports. And my kids are pretty good athletes. And so we've had to figure those things out. But we're not just going to throw them into some cultural, grind, this whole, I call it like a hamster wheel of culture that is just constantly running this rat race. We're not doing that. And we trust God with the outcome in whatever it may be. Yeah. So those are the things I would say. So if you want to establish family values, let me give you a couple pointers. Go home and sit down with your spouse. And if you have teenage kids, I would let them, even 8 or 9 year old kids, they can come up with words. Write down 10 or 15 things that you think are vital or important to your family, like being honest, having fun. Just write those things down. And we have actually worksheets I can send you if you want to send us an email at info@relevantchurch.cc. We can get those to you. But just literally write down, hey, we want to, prayer is important, or vacations are and then just start building these things out. Circle the ones. You'll find that, oh, wow, 3 of our family all said the same thing. Let's circle that one. And then let's all put them up there and go, well, 2 of these are kind of the same. So that can make one and then just come up with 6 or 8 and then agree to them. And then leave a little space to where you realize along the way, you know what, we want to add this one because we realize that's important and we missed it along the way. No more than 10. We have 10. And then put them somewhere around the house where people can see them and agree upon them. And so, hey, look, if you have questions, I did most of the talking on this one. I get it. Next episode, you're going to hear Daniel do most of the talking as we talk to graduates. But like and share. If this is helpful, maybe you can tell us which one of these stood out to you the most. Share this with your friends on Instagram, social media. It's on all platforms, Spotify, it's on YouTube, it's on Apple Podcasts. And just get the word out, man. We're hoping to help families and individuals live the good life. So check us out next time as we talk to students, graduates, young adults, and give some advice for that stage of life. God bless you guys.